Hello, I'm Ethan. Most of the ghost stories you hear online usually end with the main character moving out, finding an exorcist, or narrowly escaping death. But the story I'm about to tell you today doesn't have a happy ending like that. In fact, I am recording this audio while still sitting in that very same room. Last year, I moved into an old apartment complex hidden deep within a quiet alley in the city. The rent was unbelievably cheap. The room was on the 4th floor at the dead end of the hallway. It lacked sunlight, but it was incredibly spacious. The landlady was a skinny, frail woman of very few words. She handed me the keys, took my deposit, and gave me only one strict warning: never try to open the large wooden wardrobe in the corner of the room. The previous tenant lost the key and she wouldn't like anyone touching her things. At the time, I just smiled it off. It was a massive, heavy ironwood wardrobe, shut tight with a padlock covered in green rust. I've always been a skeptic, completely devoid of any belief in ghosts, spirits, or the supernatural, so the existence of the wardrobe didn't bother me at all. I even used it to drape my wet towels over. Everything was perfectly normal for the first 2 weeks, until one night towards the end of the month when it started pouring rain. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I suddenly heard a strange noise. It was very faint, very quiet. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It sounded exactly like fingernails scraping slowly against hardwood. The sound was coming from the corner of the room, directly from the ironwood wardrobe. I sat bolt upright, straining my ears. The room was dead silent, save for the patter of rain against the window pane. I told myself it was probably just rats running in the ceiling, or maybe a tree branch outside brushing against the brick wall. But the moment I lay my head back onto the pillow, the sound started again. This time it was clearer, more rhythmic. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It wasn't coming from the outside of the wardrobe. It was coming from the inside. Something, or someone, was inside that locked wardrobe and it was trying to get out. I flicked on the fluorescent light and walked on tiptoe towards the wardrobe. The sound abruptly stopped. I slapped my hand hard against the wooden door. Is there a rat in here? No answer. I pressed my ear against the cold wood. No breathing, no rustling. Just a dead, heavy silence. But over the following nights, that sound began to haunt me. It no longer waited for rainy nights. It started happening at 2 a.m., then 3 a.m. The scratching grew increasingly frantic, increasingly desperate. Some nights, mixed in with the sound of scraping wood, I could even hear whispering. A very soft, raspy female voice, repeating a phrase I couldn't quite make out. The severe exhaustion and sleep deprivation made me incredibly aggressive. I called the landlady, demanding she send a locksmith to break the wardrobe open immediately, because I suspected a dead animal was rotting inside. But the old woman just replied in a cold, flat tone over the phone, "I told you not to touch it. If you don't like it, you can move out. The deposit will not be refunded." I didn't have the money to move out right then, and my curiosity, mixed with sheer bubbling anger from the lack of sleep, finally overpowered my fear entirely. On a weekend night, when the familiar scratching started up again, I decided I wasn't going to take it for another second. I grabbed a claw hammer from my toolbox, turned on every single light in the room so it was blazing bright, and marched straight to the wardrobe. The scratching inside seemed to sense the threat. It paused for a beat, and then suddenly, something slammed violently against the wooden door from the inside. Bang, bang, bang. The force was so strong that the entire heavy wardrobe shook violently. Cold sweat drenched my forehead, but my hand swung the hammer down with a crushing blow onto the brass padlock. 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes. The rusted metal finally gave way and clattered onto the tiled floor. The room plunged into absolute silence instantly. No more banging. No more scratching. I took a deep, shaky breath, grabbed the handle, and yanked the doors open. The hinges let out a bone-chilling, prolonged creak that echoed in the quiet night. Inside the wardrobe, it was completely empty. There was no animal carcass, no ghost, nothing at all. Nothing except a thick smell of mold that assaulted my nose, and a small black notebook lying alone on the bottom panel. But when I shined my phone's flashlight onto the inside of the wooden doors, my stomach tied itself into a knot. The wood was covered in deep, jagged gouges, stained with streaks of dried, flaking reddish-brown. Those weren't rat scratches. They were human fingernail marks. With trembling hands I picked up the notebook. It was the diary of the previous tenant, a girl named Lon. In the first few pages she wrote about finding a cheap room, about the joy of having a new place. But as I flipped to the later pages, the handwriting became increasingly frantic, broken, and chaotic. Day 14. I hear that scratching sound again. It's coming from inside the walls. Day 22. It's not in the walls. It's coming from the wooden wardrobe. I've locked it. Day 30. The landlady lied. There's nothing in the wardrobe. I broke the lock and opened it, but the scratching hasn't stopped. The very last page of the diary contained only a single sentence, written with such force that the pen had torn right through the paper. The scratching isn't coming from the wardrobe. It's coming from inside my head. It's eating my brain. The notebook slipped from my fingers and fell to the floor with a thud. A freezing chill raced down my spine. At that exact moment, the two wardrobe doors slowly swung shut on their own. Click. The room fell silent once more. I stood rooted to the spot, clutching my head, desperately trying to convince myself that this was all just the delusions of a mentally ill girl, and that I was just scaring myself. But then, scratch, scratch, scratch. The sound started again. But this time, as I stared blankly at the wardrobe, I realized a horrifying truth. The sound wasn't coming from that direction at all. I darted my eyes around the room, up at the ceiling, down under the bed. It wasn't coming from anywhere in the room. The sound of fingernails scraping against wood, it was echoing right against my eardrums. That spine-tingling friction was coming from inside my own skull. I have locked the door and trapped myself in this room for 3 days now. I can't step outside because the scratching echoing in my head is so loud it makes me lose my sense of direction. The pain is driving me insane. I am recording and telling you this story, not to scare you or get views, but because I just heard that female whisper again. She told me that if I tell someone else about this sound, she will spare me and move on to scratch the inside of the head of whoever is listening. Tell me, right now, do you hear anything?